and welcome back to Breaking the Barrier. Today, we are visiting with someone who has mixed raw talent with hard work and has wowed audiences all over the country. Today's guest is Dusti Dickerson. She is a professional trick and Roman rider performing at the National Finals Rodeo and countless other large scale events. And she has joined us today to tell her story. Dusty, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so flattered to be here.
I have so many questions for you. What you do is truly art mixing horsemanship and acrobatics with performance, and we'll dig into the nitty gritty of that later. But give us a glimpse into young Dusty and where you really got your start.
Okay. So I started out, my dad and my uncle co-owned a rodeo company in Illinois. We put on county fairs, and I grew up carrying the American flag. I grew up barrel racing. I was not a good barrel racer, but I loved it. And I was also a competitive gymnast. I loved gymnastics. Unfortunately, I got really tall, but I saw trick riding when I was about 8 for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is it. Then we went on vacation to Branson, Missouri, and I saw Dixie Stampede for the first time. That's when I saw Roman riding. And for just whatever reason, Roman riding just really, I guess, changed my life. I just thought the connection with the rider and watching the horses do what they did, I thought it was just amazing. It was absolutely riveting to me. So we went home and I told my dad then and there, I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. And he said, well, if you want to do it, we've got the horses, go home and let's try it. So we came home, and that's kind of where everything started. So I got home and we had two horses named Chief and Ariel, and they were just, um, there's just no words to describe them and what they did for me. But I got home and I put them together. And a fun fact about me is that I Roman ride bareback and barefoot. A lot of people think I do that to be different. I don't. We didn't know where to get Roman pads at the time. So dad's like, well, you can make it work. And that's where I really credit so much of like my gymnastics. And that goes to my mom. My mom was so dedicated to gymnastics, and because of the beam and certain things, I was really used to using my feet. So, that really came in handy when I was learning, and that's why I started bareback and barefoot. It was just my comfort zone, and I had just those two. They worked together. I mean, it was magic between me and them. I did my first show when I was about 11, and it just took off from there.
Wow. Well, seems like the perfect storm to me. You have this strong gymnastics foundation, you have supportive parents and horses that are capable of helping you. But this is such a niche skill set. How did you master the basics at such a young age?
I get asked a lot, like, is it hard to learn? How did you learn this and that? And I just always go back to I was 10, I was fearless. I At the time, I mean, if I fell off, it was like, was that a good wreck? Did anyone see it? That was cool. And I bounced. And again, I was hard into gymnastics and horses. And so, yeah, when you made the comment about it being the perfect storm, it really, truly was. So it was hard. And as far as getting started, it was just troubleshooting. I'd get on, and my dad, at 10 and 11, what kid is going to actually stick with something? So he didn't want me to mess up they were pickup horses, right? So I had to start with halters and reins with them. So it was just a lot of troubleshooting as far as trial and error. My early pictures are me splitting barrels. We split fire torches and now, and I was weaving and splitting. We would take the barrel racing barrels at rodeos, and we would light the tops on fire, and kind of same with jumping. I was just jumping whatever I could find, and so it was just, I'm so thankful for my background in trial and error, because I didn't really do clinics. There wasn't clinics. I'm in Southern Illinois, you know. So I kind of had to learn everything the hard way, and I just am so thankful for that. When it comes to arenas, I'll get people calling, and they're indoor pins, and they'll say something like, "Oh, it's a small pin. Can you do that?" Well, I grew up on track arenas. So, when I would get out of an arena that was 75 foot wide and 150 long, I thought it was like the biggest arena ever. So I learned a lot about tight turns and how to work with bad ground. And so, again, a lot of the things I do now goes back to that, to my gymnastics, A, and then B, having to learn the hard way. And I wouldn't change any of that for anything.
Yeah, very cool. Well, as you kind of alluded to, there are very few kids or hobbies for that matter that stick with people from when they're young through adulthood. And that's kind of what's unique about rodeo, but especially unique about your situation. I can imagine that there's sort of an addictive element to what you do. What led you to kind of sink your teeth in beyond riding as a kid?
Gosh, I don't even know. I live in a small town. Getting out and being a big star, that was always something I wanted to do. This is really crazy. But like I was always obsessed with like Cher and Reba McEntire and Fancy. Like, I mean, I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be famous for something. I wanted to perform. I loved riding my horses. And not just on a performance level. Today, I could go out and ride in fields the rest of my life and never get in front of a crowd again. And I'd be so happy. I genuinely love my horses and the performing. It's all been such a funny storm for my love of performing and my horses. So I guess even as a kid, once I would sink my teeth in, I was hooked and I was going to go all the way, all or nothing.
So, at what point did you decide, yes, this is a fun hobby and I love doing this at rodeos, but this is what I want to do for my job?
So I was about 16 and I did a rodeo in Coldwater, Michigan, and I worked with an announcer named Martin Orthall. And Dixie Stampede was my ultimate goal. Growing up in rodeo, for whatever reason, going to Dixie was my ultimate goal. And it always seemed super unattainable. But when I worked at rodeo in Coldwater, Michigan, I worked with Martin Orthall, and he was an announcer. It turns out he was a host at the Stampede. And he came up to me after that rodeo and he said, "Have you ever thought about a career at Dixie Stampede?" And I can remember looking at my dad and being like, "Did he just say that?" So, like I said, I was 16 when I met him. And it was about that moment when he came to me and asked me if that's something I would want to do because I'd be a good fit for it. I feel like that's when it really hit me like, I really can do this. So he basically said, when you get home, when you turn 18, give me a call because you couldn't be 16 and work there. So about the time I was 18, I kind of hit him up again. I'm like, "Hey, Mark, I'm going to turn 18 this summer. If it's still something that you think I can pursue, can we, go forward with this?" And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So then he pointed me to the IFR showcase. They have a showcase at the IFR every year for specialty acts. And I went and I did that. I competed in it. And once again, it was just God and perfect timing. And the Roman rider at Dixie was actually there, and he saw me perform. But there was a lot of other contractors there. Legend Steve Gander, he worked for the World's Toughest started the World's Toughest. He happened to be there, and it was just one of those performances that was just, I'll never forget it because it was just the right place at the right time. Dixie, I ended up getting told the Roman Rider was going to retire and make sure I called him this summer, which I did. And also that year was the first time I performed at a World's Tough, or the next year I worked a World's Toughest for the first time. So that showcase was the right place at the right time moment when it hit me like, this could be a career path, or this is going to be my career path. And about that time I started training another team, a backup team, Royal and Fella. You'll see hundreds and thousands of pictures of me on them. So at that time, then I had what I call my core four, kind of from all of that stemmed from that showcase. Was I had Chief and Arrow, and then I had Royal and Fella. And I ended up getting hired at Dixie that year, and I moved to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and that led to 13 years performing there. So it was just one thing led after another. So I guess I would have to say I was 16 or 17 when it really hit me that like, this is going to be my career.
Wow. Well, give us a glimpse into what the production is like at the Dixie Stampede and how that foundation has kind of influenced what you do now at rodeos across the country.
So that's like one of my favorite things to talk about. Um, when I got to Dixie, so I got to Dixie with Chief and Arrow, and it was really cool that I got to ride them there because, so this is something I really enjoy sharing. I was my freshman year in high school. I was oh gosh, like an attendant in homecoming. And it's, what is your dream career path? And my dream career path was riding Chief and Arrow at Dixie Stampede. So I'll just never forget my first moment of going in the building with them and like just walking around backstage with my mom and dad and being like, "Oh my gosh," like at that moment, I just thought I had made it. and my first show on them. It was just all super surreal. But so when I got there, I was used to rodeo and just balls to the wall. The faster you go, the better. My payoffs and showmanship. Like I was showy and stuff, but I was very like a rough cut version of myself. And they really took me. I had a manager named Joe Reaping, and after I did my first run through or two, he's like, "Hey, we need to come over here. Let's work with your hands." And I was a gymnast, so I'm thinking, I have great hands. Like, what are you talking about? But he like taught me how to properly present and about timing and how to present and how to time things and how to use my body elegantly. And so right there, that a lot of showmanship, a lot of what people talk about is my showmanship, and 1,000,000% that goes to my time at Dixie Stampede is my showmanship. Another really cool thing about Dixie is you do from 1 to 5 shows a day. You can do up to 5 shows a day for like 2 weeks straight. And a huge credit and something I think I have a great advantage is if I book a 5 to 10 day performance, I know how to use my horses in a way that I'm not overworking them, or I know how to condition them. I know how to be consistent with them. And 100% that goes to Dixie and learning how to best prepare my horses for 1 to 5 shows a day. So Dixie, I owe a lot to as far as consistency and showmanship.
Definitely. Well, what are some of the other components of the Dixie Stampede? What else is involved in that production?
As far as Roman riding or just the whole
The
thing?
whole shebang. I live in Nebraska, so I would love to say that I have attended, but my experience is limited to any YouTube videos I've watched online.
So it's such a one of a kind show. They've been going, I think they're on their 150th year now, which for a horse based show is incredible. Their attention to detail, every person, whether you've worked the NFR 50 times or you're a circus performer or you're an acrobat or dancer, you cannot help but appreciate the precision and how they get things in and out of an arena seamlessly. There's a couple acts where they have like 12 different people and 12 horses, and the lighting and spotlights, I mean, they have it down to seconds. Like at a minute 21, we're going to run this act, and this act is 2 minutes and 12 seconds. So their attention to detail is just second to none. There's dance acts in it where you're out there dancing on a sand floor. The choreographers they bring in and out, the changes they make, they have aerial acts. And then on top of that, you've got 1,200 people sitting, in the stands that are eating a full meal at this time. So from the time you walk into the door to the time you walk out, you've got employees that are showing attention to gift shop utensils or lack thereof utensils, the food. You get a rotisserie chicken. Like it's just a show that you almost need to attend if you like horses or production at all, because they have mastered it, and it's very impressive. Even to this day, I've been gone for 7 years now, and still I look back to the timing and detail and I'm like, gosh, they are just geniuses.
Wow. Well, you spent 12, 13 years there. What influenced your decision to make the transition from that role to focusing more on rodeo?
So once I got to Dixie, I don't want to say rodeo took a back seat, but it did take a back seat. I'm an all in 100% type of person, no matter what it is. So once I got to Dixie, I really immersed myself into that lifestyle. And I guess I'd been at Dixie for 4 or 5 years, and I put in for the IFR. I got the IFR, and it kind of like, I feel like that really re influenced me. Like, hey, I really can still rodeo, and I can still have a presence in rodeo. So I feel like that really reignited my passion for rodeoing. And so I started rodeoing a little more. And I met some really great contractors and committees and started doing bigger rodeos. I got my PRCA card again. And I really kind of started dipping my toes hardcore back into the rodeo scene. And then I also got married. I met my husband at Dixie, and we got married and started talking children. And we um, a big thing is we didn't want to have kids in Pigeon Forge in a tourist town. I'm really passionate about my hometown. Even living in Dixie, I mean, I came home at least once a month. I performed in all my hometown rodeos. Home was always a big deal to me. I went to a Lutheran school from kindergarten to eighth grade, and my husband we really love that school. Really passionate about that school. My whole family lives here. My mom, my brothers. I have aunts, uncles. The whole town is just a great little community, and that's what we wanted the kids to grow up in. So we moved home with the intent of our kids going to this school and living in this environment. So rodeo was a big deal, and being able to rodeo full time, that was something. But first and foremost, we wanted to build our family in my hometown.
Very powerful. Well, your husband does perform with you on occasion. What is that dynamic like? It's one thing to work with your spouse, it's another thing to trick ride with your spouse. Tell us
Hey,
about that
Justin, come here.
experience.
Answer this question really quick. Come here really fast. So he gives the best analogy of his performing. So this is my husband, Justin. Come here, hurry fast. So she asked me what the dynamic is when we perform together and your performance right now. What do you always say about your performing right now?
Oh, I'm just one of the old horses that she pulls out when she has to have something extra.
I love when he says that. So he's kind of right. So Justin, I always joke he has the real job, quote unquote. He manages a free range chicken farm, the pullets. Anyway, that's where our insurance and our long term plan comes from. But like bigger rodeos or rodeos that we really enjoy, he does still trick ride. He works really hard at it. Um, Used to, trick riding was a predominantly male sport. And now there are just very few male trick riders. So I'm always really proud of him. He's 43 years old now and still is working out hard. And whenever he does perform, it's always fun to watch him get so much credit and recognition because he still does the reverse croupers where you basically do a flip off the rump and back on. And he
Wow.
goes at a high speed, and he's got a lot of the showmanship. He performed at Dixie. He Roman rode at Dixie. So Justin's a really good like he said, he's a really good one to pull off the bench here and there for the big stuff.
I love that. That was great timing. Thank you for pulling him.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was
I'm glad he
awesome.
got home from work to answer that question.
Well, as you've alluded to, it takes a lot of physical strength and conditioning to be able to do what you do. How do you prepare your body and prepare mentally to perform at such a high level?
Mentally, I love that. So in the last 5 years, we moved home from Dixie. When I was at Dixie, we did again 1 to 5 shows a day. So you could eat literally anything you wanted and stay pretty trim. Um, and when you get hired on there, you obviously have to have a look that they like. So there's always the pressure of staying looking a certain way, and it's a good thing. It's good, and it's motivational to stay looking a certain way, not only for the crowd but for your horses. When you're trick riding and you're flopping upside down, you kind of need to stay within a weight, to make it comfortable on them. I'm pretty tall for a trick rider, so Dixie really like was a great foundation in the gymnastics background, everything for staying fit. So then I moved home and was on the road full time, and that got I had to. So the point of all the Dixie stuff was I didn't really have to work out super hard there, but leaving Dixie, I really had to start hitting walking and running. I hate the gym. So all of a long story still long. I walk and jog a lot, and then stretching is extremely important to me. I stretch 2 or 3 times a day for 10, 15 minutes a time. And again, lot of power walking, a lot of jogging. We put on rodeos here at the house, so running bleachers. I try to do 200 sit-ups a day and 50 squats a day, no matter what. I just feel like that's super important. So then we moved home from Dixie, and we started trying for my family. It took us a while to get pregnant with my son. So, with pregnancy and coming back from pregnancy, that is a whole new dynamic of how to stay fit and everything. And I was pretty fortunate. I was had really healthy, good pregnancies, but learned a lot about my body through pregnancy. Worked out a lot harder through pregnancy, and then now, it's very having to watch what I eat and all these things. It's a whole new dynamic for me. Post pregnancy and my body coming back after pregnancy. So definitely have to eat cleaner and watch what I eat and don't eat past a certain time. And I hate that because I love to eat. Like
Me
I
too.
love restaurants. I'm a foodie. So watching what I eat and everything, that's definitely been a whole new
Yeah.
whole new thing for me now.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like across the traditional events of rodeo, people are realizing more and more the importance of treating their bodies like the athletes that they are. But I feel like in the trick riding space, at least, that's kind of always been the unspoken standard because you really can't accomplish the things that you do without being at your best.
Without being physically fit. You know,
Yeah.
you mentioned the mental side of things. And that has been, to just kind of be raw and real. The mental side of it for me in the last 4 years since my kids, that's been a whole new thing that I've had to kind of work through. Before my kids, I was fearless. Like there was nothing you couldn't talk me into trying. If you said so and so's jumping that, I wanted to jump higher. If I watched a video and someone's horse was running faster in a trick riding pattern than mine, I was out hunting for a bigger, faster horse. And, you know, as far as going back to Dixie Stampede, you jump a ring of fire in the middle of the arena with no wings, nothing. It's a giant fire jump in the middle of the arena. And, I took all that for granted for so long just because mentally I am a pretty stout person. I've always never thought I can't do something. My dad and my mom have been very, it's never a you can't. You've got to either figure out a way or, don't do it. It's not that you can't do it, it's that you either don't want to do it bad enough or you're not going to put in the time. So, like, can't has never been in a vocabulary. So, mentally, again, I'm just very stout. But after kids and pregnancies, my mental game has just really, I'm nervous in ways that I've never been before. So that's definitely like pushed me to practice different, practice smarter, perform smarter. And that's been kind of a challenge for me to come to terms that I'm not superwoman. I'm not 16 anymore. And in the last couple of years, I struggled with that, especially after my daughter. It was, I went through a year where it was a lot of insecurities and gosh, I'm just not going to be what I was. And I've had to just kind of look at that and be like, you know what? I've had two kids. I have something to live for outside of myself, and that's okay. It's okay to be not a lesser version of what I was, but just a more practical, safer version of what I was. And just being okay with that has been tricky. And you know what? We just had the Olympics and we watched Simone really talk about mental health and being mentally prepared, and that comes with a lot more physical preparation, and that's all okay. It's okay to take care of yourself, and that's been something I've had to work through, and I'm really thankful. I'm thankful for all that. I'm thankful for all the challenges of that too. And now I think that I'm probably performing better and stronger than I ever have because of taking that step back and being a little more mentally aware.
Yeah, it's crazy. It seems counterproductive, but it always is astonishing how once we give ourselves a little bit of grace, we end up surpassing the mental barrier that we put up for ourselves. So thank you for sharing
That
that.
is
That's really neat.
so perfectly said. There's been a couple, and having the kids, I've a couple over the last couple years, a few other great trick riders have had babies. Madison McDonald Thomas, she's been at the NFR 11 times. My good friend Lindy Neely, Leica, I always call them by their maiden names, but Lindy Leica just had a baby and they're coming back on the road. And I think something that's been really fun is reaching out to them. And what you just said earlier, I could almost show you the screenshot of what I sent Madison earlier this year. I'm like, no matter what, you need to look at your body and be like, you created that beautiful little baby boy. And if you aren't going under the neck and you're having to do simpler tricks, give yourself grace. It's amazing what you're doing. Be thankful for your body. Be thankful you can do it. And if you're not trick riding at the level you think you are, you've got to give yourself grace. And so between the pregnancies and kids, I've really tried to reach out and be
Mhm.
something of saying that to other trick riders, like give yourself that grace. So when you said that just now, it kind of gave me goosebumps because
Oh.
that's kind of become one of my mottos. Give yourself grace after kids. And
Yeah.
and even before kids or after kids. Give yourself grace. If you wreck and you're trying to come back from something, go easy on yourself at times. You got to push, as a rodeo athlete, any kind of athlete, you literally live pushing yourself. And
Mhm.
there's got to be some give and take and giving yourself some grace here and there.
Well, definitely props because half the time I can't even stand on one foot without falling over. So I think everything you do well surpasses the average human, obviously. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did you trick ride throughout your pregnancies as well?
I did.
Yes.
Cruise,
Tell us about
my
that.
son, I stopped at about, I was 19 weeks pregnant with him when I stopped. And then Valen, so I had a great doctor. My doctor has known me a long time, knows my family, and him and his wife do like bodybuilding competitions. So he is very pro active pregnancies.
Hmm.
And he very much was like, if you stop cold turkey, your body's going to be shocked. Like, as hard as you go with this, as long as you feel comfortable, keep doing it and do it safe. So with Cruz, I went till I was 18, 19 weeks pregnant. But then after I stopped, I kept going and going and going and going. And I'm like, gosh, I can still be performing. And I love performing and I love my horses. And I have a really um, great crew right now that we worked hard to set me up with for pregnancies and kids that they're all very seasoned veterans. So when I got pregnant with my daughter, I actually did go to 28 weeks with her. I had outfits that were concealing it. And I reached out to the two rodeos that I was 27 and 28 and 29 weeks pregnant with. And I was like, hey, just so you know, I do have a little bump. Are you comfortable with this? And I won't be going as hard. I'm only going to be on two horses. I will not trick ride. Are you guys comfortable with this? And they're like, if you're comfortable, we're comfortable. So I was a solid 8 months pregnant with Valen when I stopped performing. And then the morning of my last doctor appointment with Valen, I had her at 38 weeks. My husband walked outside and I was actually out Roman riding. He's like, he snapped a picture and he's like, you look ridiculous. Cause I mean, I was out to here, but I was still practicing. For whatever reason, I thought it was a good idea. I booked a show 4 weeks after my due date. So I was prepping for that while pregnant. With saying all this, I'm not encouraging anyone to do this, but mentally it was all good for me. It kept me grounded. I still was getting to do what I loved. I felt safe doing it. I was on safe horses. So I Roman rode the morning I had my daughter. That is true.
Oh my gosh. Well, moments ago you claimed that you weren't Superwoman, but I think that story just negates anything you said
No,
before.
I'm not a superwoman. I'm just, I don't know. I really love what I do. And you know what? Talk about mental health. Again, my doctor was very much like, um, talked about like postpartum when I was released from the hospital with both kids. He very much was like, take an hour a day. And this is something I really push to all new moms, whether you're a bicycle rider or a painter or a barrel racer or anything. It's okay to take time for yourself after the baby to keep remembering who you are. And before I got released with both kids, his big thing was take an hour a day to go do something for you. The baby is going to survive without you. Take an hour. And I did that with both my kids. I got home, and whether I would just waddle outside and pick a stall or lead my horse to some grass, it just really like kept me grounded and kept me, I'm still me. I have this little person depending on me, and it's okay to dedicate 23 hours a day to that person, but it's still okay to take care of yourself an hour a day. And just that hour, I would go for walks or, do the horses, and it didn't make me a bad mom or that I didn't care about my baby, but or I would sit outside and suntan and read a book. And my husband was clutch on that. Like when the doctors talked about that stuff, Justin took that very seriously, and they would push me outside and like get away from the baby for an hour. And it was really powerful. And looking back on that now, like I really see the importance of why that's such a good, healthy thing for you.
Yeah. Support is so important. And I have not had any kids, but I am at the age where many of my friends are. And just the stories that I've followed along with people who do truly remain active throughout their pregnancies, it seems like mentally they have such a better shot of recovering it at a pace that feels more like themselves. So
At a
that's,
pace that feels more like themselves.
yep.
Like I mentioned earlier, if you get pregnant and you stop when you're 4 weeks pregnant, that is totally fine. But if you want to keep going, that's great. Everyone do what you're comfortable with,
Hmm.
and don't be apologetic about it. Do you and be comfortable with that. But active pregnancies, I mean, whether it's you walking down the road and back, staying active and doing what you do is to me very, very important through it.
Yeah. Well, switching gears a little bit, you have performed at the Super Bowl of rodeo, at the NFR, at many large rodeos across the country. Can you talk about the experience and what it truly takes logistically to take all of your horses, your young family, all of the costumes you need? I'm not asking this question concisely, but it just seems like a large undertaking to get all of those pieces in place for each rodeo.
It's a learning experience. Every single weekend is a learning experience. My first NFR 2 years ago now, Valen was only 6 months old, so out what to take and learning what to take and what not to take. You know, when you're on the road, there's really you don't have to just overwhelm your trailer with toys and learning what not to take. Taking care of your horses and making sure they're taken care of, that's a big thing. I have an older crew of horses right now, and anyone who here's my here's my crew right now having their snacks. So it's definitely all been a change. And logistically, the costumes and learning how to pack and being open minded to packing and asking questions how to pack and learning what's necessary and not necessary. It's all a learning experience. And there again, giving yourself grace and time and patience is key to all of that. And the support system, my mom, I don't even have enough words for how helpful she is. My husband, so supportive. I have brothers, everyone jumps in to help. It takes a village to help. And now I've come to a point where I book smarter. I book rodeos where if Justin or my mom can't come, I know that I've got a secretary that I can hand my kid to while I perform. And booking smarter shows that I know I can have help at is a big deal to me right now.
Definitely. Well, I can only imagine, obviously, your kids are pretty small right now, but I can only imagine the awe in their eyes when they get to watch their mom do something as unique and as talented as you do. What kind of example do you hope that you're setting for them in continuing to go after your dreams as a mom?
So hard work, conditioning, sticking with it. Something that's really important to me is they do watch me trick ride. They're not really allowed to stand up or do anything like that right now because I'm really, really passionate about relationships with the horse and learning how to ride. I hope that I'm teaching them right now how to wake up in the morning and the horses eat first. You'll hear my little 4-year-old, you'll say, who pays for all your toys? And he'll say the horses. And I'm like, okay, well, we have to take care of them first. We have to thank them first and foremost. And when I'm on the road, you can usually tell where I am. I've got canopies and fans, and those horses are why I get to do what I can do. And I hope that I'm setting a good example for my kids how to treat their horses well and treat others well and be thankful for everything they're getting to do. And so that's all very important to me.
Mhm.
And treating the horses well and being appreciative of the horses. I hope that translates to, if they play sports, being appreciative to their coaches or their trainers or to me and Justin for hauling them back and forth. I hope that my appreciation for my horses can translate to them with everything.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your string and what goes into training a successful trick horse or Roman riding horse.
So it's fun. Every single horse of mine is kind of a reject at something. I have two of them that were not good barrel horses. And thankfully, I've made a lot of barrel racer friends over the years, and they contacted me and they were like, we've got this horse. She's got all the talent in the world, but she just will not turn a barrel. Or this horse keeps bucking, or a pickup horse that can't isn't fast enough to get to the bucking horse, or maybe you've got a horse that won't drag a bull, um, or a roping horse that won't stop. That's I'm literally describing every horse I have has something that they kind of failed at, and so that's I don't really look for anything specific in a horse. Sometimes I'll see one and they should work. I just don't have a connection to them. And then I look at one that really shouldn't work, but I just, for whatever reason, have a feeling about them. I connect with them and then they're gonna work. And so it just takes a lot of listening to your horse like a child. You got to listen. I listen to them and I don't rush them. Everything goes at their own pace. I've had horses that can go in a show in a month, and I've had horses that it's taken a year to get in. Um, but at the end of the day, if I connect with one, we're going to make it work on their time. So it's a lot. It's a lot of mental and physical training with them. Um, a lot you see me out not in an arena. I do a lot of my training out in pastures in like a natural, relaxed environment for them. I condition them on trail rides or again out in the field. Um, a lot of people joke I condition year round. It may be snowing and I'm out there riding because what happens if I'm in a snowy rodeo or a really cold rodeo or a really hot rodeo? I want their lungs ready for anything I throw at them. So conditioning them and me is like next to taking a shower. Like it's that important to me, conditioning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything to me. I am a diehard conditioner, whether it's me or them, and
Hmm.
I'm year round at that.
I can only imagine. I mean, in the traditional rodeo events, of course, you have to trust your horse, but this is a whole different level of trust that I'm sure you have to unlock with these different horses, and I'm sure that makes it even more important to have the perfect fit as opposed to an okay fit for what you do.
Absolutely. And earlier we talked about I could take any I could just about take any horse and I'd like make it happen. Nowadays, I've got a crew of horses that literally, I mean, at the NFR, I ran four of them around the pyro. And it's just because I know them all so well. I know what they can do. I know what their likes and dislikes are. And that comes from all the conditioning and spending every single day, day in, day out, watching them eat. I mean, there's times I'll just sit in the barn and I can watch them eat and I can tell who's feeling good and who's not. And it's just endless watching them and paying attention to them and listening to them. And I'm thankful for all that because I have just such beautiful relationships with every one of them. I just had a 36-year-old horse fella. I talked about him earlier. He was 36 when he passed away. And I promise you, he was as sound as any other horse I had. And I take a lot of pride in keeping him conditioned and feeling like he was part of the team until the day he passed away. And I mean, he literally just laid down, and I knew it was his time. And I'm very passionate about that with every horse I have here. Every horse I have here is going to have a beautiful grave and marker because they truly have made things possible for me that should have never been possible.
They've earned it for sure.
They've
Well,
earned it.
of all the places that your horses have taken you, where has been the most fun rodeo or place you've performed at, and what made that experience so special?
Oh my gosh. So many great ones. The NFL, the Vegas NFR is obviously going to jump out because, I talked about Dixie earlier and I was there for a long time. And while I was there were other girls that were going hard and going out west and going to the big rodeos and putting themselves out there in ways that I was kind of limited. I limited myself at Dixie. So when I left Dixie and I came out and started playing you know, the bigger rodeo game, I was really far behind. Um, and so the NFR really almost wasn't even a goal because it felt so like there's no way it could happen. So whenever it kind of started it started looking like it could be a possibility. I mean, it was just crazy. And then to get it and just have my daughter, and then go out there, the NFR is definitely going to come to mind. But there's a lot of rodeos. Manawa, Wisconsin. It's a family ran rodeo. Really great contestants come there. There's a river out back where the kids can go play in, and just good people, good families. We just got back from Ogden, Utah. That was a great, great rodeo. St. Paul, Oregon, just to name a few, have just been outstanding rodeos for the personnel, the people, the towns, the communities. A lot of times, your smaller towns are just so welcoming, and they don't only welcome you, they welcome your family, and like you become part of their family. So, there's been countless rodeos. I don't even know, I wouldn't even know how to like list the best ones, but NFR definitely ranks way up there. And getting to do a circuit finals. All the circuit finals have been just unbelievable. I get to do the Great Lakes Circuit Final this year, and that's really cool. My brother Will Crane, he was a bull rider, and he was the Great Lakes Circuit bull rider a few different times. So there's some family history getting to do the Great Lakes Circuit Finals. That's really cool.
Yeah. What would you say the sport of trick, or how would you say the dynamics of trick riding have changed since you first got started to now? How is the, I don't want to call it an ecosystem, but there's a very niche community and it's certainly grown, at least from the outside looking in.
Just like with everything, it's definitely evolved in like costuming, social media. What's been cool, I'll tell you what social media and an involvement has been. Iron sharpens iron, and I feel like years ago, everyone felt they had to do the hardest tricks all the time. And now you can still do those hard tricks, but the production behind it has become just as important. The production behind it has become just as important. The costumes are awesome. You're seeing more pyro flags and smoke bombs, and it's definitely evolved in, I guess, the smoke and mirrors show with it. And it's a lot of that, just crazy stuff everyone's trying. We're all seeing each other do things. And it's not that we're competing with each other, but I definitely think getting to see what everyone else does motivates the rest of us to like up our game. And
Mhm.
so I think if the dynamic has changed, it's being able to see each other and really evolve from watching each other and try new things and try to be different and bring more unique content to your act. So I feel like that's been a good way that social media and evolvement of this has happened.
Absolutely. Well, this is a selfish question because I truly just want to know. I am fascinated by all of the costumes that you wear. What is the process like designing those, or where do you even get a costume like the ones that you wear? I'm genuinely curious.
So a lot of us, you can go online and find so much and like dance costumes and everything. I am a bargain shopper and I'm pretty fortunate that I have really great seamstresses. For me, I love proms because this is crazy, but talk about evolving. When you watch what these girls are wearing to prom and homecoming and these dances and pageants, you can kind of see trends and what's kind of in and what people like to see. So I love taking prom dresses and finding prom dresses and having my seamstress revamp them to suit what I'm doing. So that's been fun. I found a company out in Vegas like this year when I found out I was doing the NFR. I wanted to do some showgirl looks, and I found a company out in Vegas that has um, showgirl style outfits. And again, I brought those home, and I had my seamstress revamp them to suit what I needed. There was a really great company called Algae several years ago that a lot of us were using for trick riding outfits, and they were outstanding. Unfortunately, they're not doing that anymore. So again, a lot of us are having to get creative. But for me personally, I love a prom dress, or I'll see a rodeo queen in a really cool shirt, and I'll go try to buy the shirt off her back and then revamp it. And that's just always been so fun for me. And then like in Pigeon Forge, I have a couple different people. I would go watch shows, and I would be country to night theater. That to me, they had like the greatest dancing costumes, and I'd watch their dancers, and then I just kind of pushed my way backstage one night, and I met Cody Ratliff, who's the designer. And a lot of times I'll send an outfit idea to him, and I'm like, hey, what can I do with this? So just kind of for me, putting myself out there and watching everything else has kind of helped me do what I do. I like to watch, this is crazy, Taylor Swift and
I love
these
this.
other and these singers. I'll watch their concerts or I'll watch reels of their concerts. I'm like, what are they wearing? What are they doing? I enjoy pushing the envelope and being just taking a few style risks, because if you're not going to take a risk, how are you ever going to know if something's cool or not, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Life's too short. I love this. This is so fun.
Some of my outfits are just, again, some of my outfits you get up close or I'll come out and I'm like, you know, people either really love it or really hate it. And my mom's a really good one. I'll put something on and she's like, are you really going to go in front of 1,000 people in that? And I'm like, what's worse that could happen? They
you
might
know,
hate it. They might love it. You never know.
I think that's just a universal phrase that moms use. Are you really gonna wear that? Are you sure? I don't know.
Are
Um,
you really going to wear that? But then I'll put on something that I think is hideous. And she's like, I love that. That's going to be a big one.
yeah, reverse
What?
psychology. Well,
You
my
like this?
my friend Micah was
Yeah.
telling me, she was like, yeah, in the warm up pin at the NFR, I was talking to Dusty and she was wearing this like 30-pound headdress. She was like, you have to ask her about that. She's like, she did a backflip in it. It was so cool.
Okay, so Micah also is one of my most favorite human beings,
She's
but it was
amazing.
so funny. She's so amazing and so beautiful, and like she can rope and flank and then turn around and queen. Like she is just
Superwoman.
iconic. So it was really fun that I was out in Vegas this year and she happened to be out there. So what happened was I wanted a headdress, right? And I found one and it was like it's heavy. It's like 6 pounds and it's steel in the back. And I had thought that'd be a great outfit for like pink night. And maybe I'd just like run a couple laps and be out. Somehow it turned out I was going pink night and they asked me about the backflip. Hey, sissy, it's okay. And so I'm in the meeting and I am not one to say no. So they're like, can you do the backflip tonight? And it was pink night. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be challenging. We're going to make it happen. So my husband's out there. I called Justin. I'm walking back to me. I'm like, Justin, I'm going tonight. I'm riding 4 and I'm doing the backflip. And he's like, how you going to pull that off? Like, we're going to go to the sand pit and we're going to practice this till I get it. So I go up and I have on like a sweatshirt and practice gear. And I put on the headdress with my practice gear. We go out to the sand pit and Micah happens to be out there warming up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. She probably didn't tell you I crashed probably 5 or 6 times, like landed flat on my head. But again, you just kind of had to adjust and go, and I figured it out, thankfully. And probably that, you know, I know this hasn't been a question, but that was probably the most nerve-wracking performance of my life.
Wow.
Was at the NFR doing the flip with that headdress on, and thankfully it all worked out.
That is insane. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I want to be respectful of your time. But is there anything in particular that we haven't covered that you want people to know?
There would be, like you said, there would be so much and the people to thank, or the list is just endless. But in this industry, I feel like you can't get ahead without someone helping you. And I just want to say that the rodeo community is so great about that, about taking someone and giving advice and helping. And it's never been as strong as now that I have kids and the people, the bullfighters, the people that reach out to you and help you with your kids out back, or you get a sick horse on the road and you watch everybody jump in to help you. It's definitely it's a community that I'm very proud to be part of and be raising my kids up in.
Definitely. Well, as we close out our episode today, would you like to leave people with a piece of advice or something to take with them?
My dad, my dad passed away. A part of my story that I haven't even broke. My dad's 46 and he passed away from a diabetic coma. And he was so ahead of his time. When we were doing rodeos 30 years ago, him and my grandpa, took chances that were, they were blowing fireworks literally 30 years ago, things that people are doing now. They were trying this and I feel like take risks. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. Take advice from people who may not have a clue about whatever you're doing, whether it's barrel racing or roping. If someone outside the box gives you advice, listen. Always listen to advice, take advice, whether you apply it or not, take advice from anyone who will give it. And the reason I brought my dad up was when I was performing and learning at a very young age, he would always say, push your limits until you think you're going to wreck and then push a little harder. So I think that's one of that. If I could give anyone piece of advice with all of this, if you're going to go as big as you think you can go and then go bigger. If you think you're practicing hard enough, practice harder. If
Yeah.
you think you're, I don't know, eating good enough, eat better. Always push harder. If you think you're reading your Bible enough, read it more. Just push harder, always push harder.
Mic drop. Well, Dusty, this has been so fun. The time has passed so quickly. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Like I said, I could ask you 100 more questions probably, but if people have listened to this episode and they would like to follow along with your journey, what's the best way they can do that?
Go to my Facebook page, follow me on Facebook. I'm terrible Instagrammer. I'm not. It's like I'm bragging about the social media platform and I'm not good at any of it. I don't
It's a
podcast, but
beast.
Dusty Crane Dickerson on Facebook. Give me a follow, and I'm pretty. I'll update here. I'll update pretty good. It's mostly about my kids, but
Yeah.
I throw some good stuff on there here and there, but I want to thank you. Your questions have been great, and shedding light on all of this is so great for you. And I appreciate you asking me to do this.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to share it with our listeners.